right, 5 minutes after 10 o'clock, it's time for This Week in Real Estate with your hosts, Dusty Travis, Josh Howland, and Nina Raimondo. And we're going to learn about buying a house. One of the most exciting things I think any of us do, aside from maybe having a baby or something of that sort. But yeah, buying a house is always exciting. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, Larry. Good morning, Robin.
It is an exciting thing to do, isn't it? It's exciting to look, but it's a headache too, right? It's both things, right?
It's a lot of fun, that's for sure.
You do it all the time, though. So
Yeah, but it never gets old.
Never gets old.
Never gets
it's
old.
Always fun.
Yeah, to see the excitement on people's faces. It's their biggest investment most of the time, so they're always happy.
So are we going to kindergarten today, like the very basic, like buying a house 101?
Yeah, I think so. What the first steps, there's still a lot of people that rent and they think it's impossible to buy a house or it's very difficult. And so we'll talk a little bit about it's really not that hard. It's pretty simple.
Can I pitch one question to you that we had last week after you left?
Yeah.
They asked me to ask you the question about the homeowners, what was it called again, Robin? Homeowners?
Association.
Yeah, the fee.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy a house and you get a mortgage quote, does that include that fee? I guess that was the question.
Yes. So what I do is I'm asking, what community are you looking in? Are you looking in a 55 plus community, and does it have an HOA? So if a realtor calls me and says, I have somebody pre-qualifying, they're looking in on top of the world, well, I automatically know that that's going to include a homeowners association fee. So that's one of the things that we look for. I look at the MLS and make sure that we're accounting taxes, insurance, and HOA fees. So the total housing expense.
Oh, okay.
And it's important for a buyer, when you're looking at properties, you should ask that question to your agent. Is there a homeowners association? Because you're locked into that. It's a monthly reoccurring fee. And that before you execute a contract, that rider needs to be provided to the potential buyer so where they know going into it, okay, I like the house and I'm willing to pay this price, but I also realize there's a $400 a month HOA, and what does that HOA include?
Okay.
Sometimes, in a lot of the communities, it's a big benefit. I just closed on one today that the HOA fee provides water. So that's part of the fee there. So some provide cable, some provide internet, some provide lawn maintenance. The golf course communities provide golf membership.
That's a nice thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So what if you don't own the land? I think in some of the communities, I think on top of the world maybe.
Some
leasehold community, yes.
Right, yeah. The older portion, the villas and on top of the world is a leasehold. It's a 99-year lease. So you technically don't own the land ever.
So does that mean you don't have property taxes?
No, that's not true.
Oh,
You
is that
have
true?
property
Oh, you still have
taxes,
it.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's essentially the same, really.
There's a
It's just-
master policy that goes along with that community, but the buyer is going to be responsible for a homeowner's insurance policy for walls in. It's called an HO3 policy.
Okay.
So it's a little less expensive. They're insuring everything on the inside.
If we can just, for our audience, describe what a homeowner association is. A homeowner association is when a developer develops a property. He has to go to the state of Florida and tells the state of Florida exactly what that developer is going to build. It could be 100 homes, or it could be 1,000 homes. It just depends. And the developer has to include all of the amenities, has to describe all the amenities that's going to be in that association. It could be swimming pools, clubhouses. In Ocala here, you could have equestrian places to keep the horses and things like that. So a homeowner association can be a good benefit to people that can't afford to have to buy a $1 million farm where they want to stable horses and pastures and things like that. If they buy into a homeowner association that provides that, what they do is they share all those costs with all the other people that live in that association. So if you couldn't afford it on your own, when you buy into an association, and say that you're a golfer, you enjoy golfing, well then you want to buy into an association that has a golf course on it. I mean, you couldn't afford to build a golf course yourself, but you love the golf, so you buy into an association that has a golf course. Some people couldn't afford to install maybe a $30,000 or $40,000 swimming pool, but a lot of these resort communities, they'll have a huge swimming pool you can go and
or multiple pools.
Pools and country clubs and things like that.
But you're obligated to that cost, so that's something that you have to keep in mind. It's never going to go away.
When you apply for the mortgage, that's figured into it. So
It is. Yes, it's not something we escrow like a taxes or
Right,
insurance,
right.
but it is part of their housing
Well,
expense.
so at least you're not caught off guard, right?
That's right.
At the end, yeah.
No, we don't want any surprises.
When people are buying their first home, do they just come up to you and say, I'm looking to buy a home, or do they have to have certain documentation with them?
Yes.
How does that work?
So when they're looking to purchase a home, I ask some important questions such as, how is the credit history? Have they established some credit in their name? We look at income, we look at assets, we make sure that they have at least 2 years on the job or in that same line of work. So there's a lot of questions that I ask in order to be able to determine what's going to be the best product or program to go with that particular buyer.
What if they don't have a credit history? Are they still eligible to get a home?
You'd have to have at least a 620 credit score or higher. So if they don't have any credit, we look for alternative forms of credit. Have they, established a cell phone bill, a utility bill? Have they paid car insurance for the last 2 years? So
That's
we
pretty
can
much everybody then.
we can build credit, which will help them if they haven't established. I always try to help people, if you need to establish credit, you need to get out there and start looking at opportunities to establish credit.
And that's what's great about Nina. We have mutual customers that I send to her, as our preferred lender. I like to use Ameris, like I said, because they're here locally and they're the lender. And she's worked with customers that I sent to her for pre-qualification that had some credit issues and some things going on. She's worked with them over the course of a year to do what they needed to do to get it right, and then they were able to purchase.
And what about age of the home buyer? Is there
There's
a
no
cutoff
age restriction.
Can't
No.
discriminate against age.
Oh,
So
really?
if you're 95 years old and you want to get a 30-year mortgage, well, we can't discriminate
I had
against
no
that.
idea. Really? Wow. It's good news for me.
Yep. Part of the Fair Housing Act. Yep.
I didn't know
You have to be
that.
fair.
Yeah.
Ethnicity, familial status, age, you can't discriminate against
We
any of
don't-
that.
no.
So how does the bank guarantee it? I mean, obviously, if you're 95 and you're getting a 30-year loan, you're probably not going to live to pay it off. Is there a guarantee somehow for the bank?
Well, they probably, if they have a spouse, when wanted to protect their interest in the property, they would continue to make their payment, whether they're
Right,
obligated
sure,
or not,
yeah.
or they would sell the home. And
If you're dead, you don't need it, we'll take it, right?
a lot of times they have heirs, their children will come in
Ah.
and take care of payments until they sell the house so that they can gain whatever equity is there.
Now, what happens when a person wants to buy the home and now they're en route, they were qualified, they found one, and they want to buy this? What is the time frame for a closing, and are there any problems during that time frame?
On average, well, we can close a loan as quickly as 15 business days. On average, a contract is signed for about 30, depending on what that client needs. Some clients, they need a little more time to get down here, maybe a 60-day close time. So yeah, I mean, we can close it as quickly as we need to, or we can extend it out to whatever the preference is for that both the seller and the buyer.
But a good average from execution of contract to closing, especially with Nina, because she's on top of it, and if your buyers meet their conditions, get their documentation into her that needs to be, that she needs to go ahead and get loan approval, and you get through your inspections, you have a good agent that's on top of the process, 30 days is pretty standard for the most part, so it's not a real long process.
So if we came to you first, would that help us avoid some mistakes that people are commonly making?
Well, typically, if you weren't pre-qualified and you came to me as an agent and you said, Josh, I want to buy a home, the first thing I would do is say, okay, we need to get you pre-qualified first, get you with Nina. It takes 30 to 45 minutes. She can do it over the phone, and we'll get the pre-qualification letter. Then I'll determine what kind of product they have. So let's say it's FHA or USDA or VA government-backed product. I know looking at the home, there's a more stringent appraisal process. So there's certain things as an agent that you need to be aware of, so where you're not wasting anybody's time, and then you'll go ahead and present an offer. Then once the offer's made, it's earnest money, inspection, title insurance commitment, appraisal, survey, and
So let's say I'm
Get to
listening to
closing.
this show and I have fallen in love with the three of you, and I want to work with you. But yet I live, let's say, in the other side of the county. Do you handle every part of it, or do you have only certain?
Well, we're
areas?
licensed to sell in the state of Florida.
Oh, anywhere.
So the state of Florida
okay.
is open.
That's awesome.
Now, but you have to be able to service your customer. So me personally, I work in this area, the surrounding areas. So Marion, Citrus, Lake, Sumter, Volusia, Putnam, sold property in Putnam County. But the nice thing about Foxfire is we're a member of what's called Leading Real Estate Companies of the World, and that's a high-level brokerage-to-brokerage referral network. So if you are looking to relocate, we're able to place you with a high-level brokerage and an agent that will ensure success for you and your purchase or sale or whatever it may be. So we can help you regardless of where you're going.
The 2-year employment history. What if somebody's retired? What do you do then?
That's easy. We just verify their retirement income. So if they have a pension, Social Security income, we'll be looking for the last 2 years 1099s, and then of course their benefit letters for those incomes.
Okay.
And now how about insurance on the properties? Because sometimes we hear, like during hurricane season, people can't buy insurance.
That is true. So most of your agencies will shut down whenever a storm is brewing. And this is a perfect time to talk about that because we're in hurricane season. So when that happens, when you're under contract, one of the first things that you want to do is start to shop for homeowners insurance and get that bound with an effective date for closing. That way you're not concerned about at the last minute we're trying to close and you haven't had gotten your insurance in place.
I completely understand the insurance company's position on that, though. Here comes a storm, and all of a sudden everybody's buying a policy.
Right.
It makes no sense.
So it's important. That's another key factor. You need to have a good agent that knows what's going on. So where you're telling your buyer, hey, let's get that homeowner's insurance binder policy as quick as we can. It's hurricane season, so you need to be attentive and make sure that you're sticking to the timeline throughout the process, so where you're making it easy for them.
The season, not necessarily, even if there's no storm pending?
Well, it's once the storm is named, right, Nina? For insurance?
I'm not
I believe
sure.
it's once it's
Okay,
named.
okay.
Once it's named. Once it's named, they won't issue a policy until the storm's moved through. And I believe there's a certain amount of mileage that it has to be off of the coast of Florida before they'll issue a policy.
Is there a way for you guys to do whatever research needs to be done so we know we're not buying a house that's prone to flooding? Or?
Yeah, so FEMA dictates the flood zones, and those are demonstrated on the property appraiser's website. So you can go on the property appraiser's website for your county and look at the map feature, and you can identify if you're in a flood zone. And that's important to know because you want to make your buyers aware of that. It doesn't mean that every time that it rains the property's going to flood, but it does mean that you're going to have an elevation certificate, and the insurance company's going to require that, and you're going to have a flood insurance policy as well. The thing about Florida, though, is with the storms we have, irregardless if you're in a flood zone or not, you should have a flood insurance policy because of torrential downpour, rain, whatever it may be. If there's flooding and you don't have it, you're not going to be covered.
The horror stories from 2004 we had.
Oh, absolutely. But one of the great things about Ocala is it has a high elevation compared to the rest of Florida. I've managed properties on the beach, and it's the highest flood zone that there is. I mean, you could be 6 feet above sea level, and the cost for insurance to live there is just unbelievable because you have to have flood insurance. And for those owners to live on a beach like that, it's a beautiful lifestyle if you can afford it. But and I always explain to my owners, that's why I work here. I don't live here. I can't afford to live here. And but it was I enjoyed the process. But that's what's so really great about Ocala. It's a high flood zone, high elevation. Yeah, thank you. High elevation, and the cost of flood insurance here is greatly less than on the lower levels of Florida, like on the beach areas.
Yeah, sure. We're 100 feet above sea level at the mall. Did you know that?
But we still have quite a few flood zone areas in Marion County.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it's depending on where you are, they have a way of measuring the elevations and determining. FEMA does that. They determine if you're in a flood zone or not, and then they redraw those maps every so often, every couple of years. So at one point you could be in a flood zone, and then if we have periods of drought over a long period of time, you may not be in a flood zone anymore. So.
Do you have a featured home you want to show, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And that is nice looking.
Yeah, it's a beautiful home in the community of Cobblestone North. It's built in 2017. It's 1,800 square feet. It's upgraded, bamboo flooring, tray ceilings, higher-end appliances, vinyl fencing. It's landscaped, and it's at a great price, $220,000 for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home that's only a couple years old. So the reason why I want to point this home out is the affordability factor. So for a first-time home buyer, you get your pre-qualification, and then you keep your eye on the market, have a good agent, and then you're able to find homes like this that have been well-maintained and have a lot of upgrades, and they're affordable. This is what the people in Ocala that have jobs here and work here, families, they can afford this and have a great place for the next 30 years.
It is a nice looking house.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and like I said, that's in Cobblestone North. And if anybody would want to take a look at it, the address is 3918 Southeast 98th Place. And I recommend, if you are thinking about purchasing a home or you're a first-time home buyer, these are the types of homes that you should be looking for because it's at a great price and it's move-in ready. You're not going to have to make repairs. You don't have to worry about a roof, a hot water heater, an HVAC unit. The working components are in great working order. So it's something that you'll be able to move in and not have any fear of, is something going to happen, once I move in, especially for families, because when you're buying that first home and you're a younger couple, you've saved as much money as you can, and you need that money for your down payment or for your closing costs, and you don't have money for major issues to take place in the years to come. So you need to rebuild on that savings account and colleges and vehicles and all that kind of thing. So we're in a good market. You can still find some good deals, and with the way things are trending, it's not going to go down anytime soon. Property values are continually rising, and the homes aren't going to get any cheaper.
And they're in a demand right now because this is the time of year that the families find new homes because of the school districts they want to move
And that's
to.
key too. School districts are key, and believe me, moms are on top of that. They know that when they're looking for a home, they're not only looking for what the home has, but they're looking at how the schools are rated. And so that's another key factor.
We just want to note that we didn't produce that video. It was produced by a third party. Josh, if you want.
Yeah, Circle Picks. That's a program that we use as an agency that helps get exposure for your property. When we market a property online, they'll produce a video and it'll be narrated, and it'll be blasted out to all the social media platforms.
All right, so the person listening who's wanting to sell, that you can help them with that same kind of video?
Right, and that's what's key is exposure on the web. 96 to 97% of all homes are bought and sold online. That's the first thing people do, is they're going to go to the web. And actually YouTube is really the #1 property site. That's where people are going to go. A lot of people think it's Zillow, but it's really YouTube. But they're going to go on to, most of the time, the big four: Zillow, Realtor, Trulia, or Homes.com, and they're going to search for a property. And you need to have high quality photography, aerial photography, and they'll take a look at that. And if they like the photos, they'll then go to the community. And if they like the community, they'll call the sign.
And you have your properties featured in Homes and Land?
Right, we do. Homes and Land is the premier publication. They're also a sponsor of the show, and they have a great digital footprint. They've got a great website, and they've got a great publication. It's really one of the best in the area. So that's another place that you can go to look for homes as well.
And how is your flexibility, Dusty, on meeting potential buyers for the homes that you represent? Do you work on the potential buyer schedule?
Absolutely. The customer dictates the schedule. I mean, we have to be there for the customer, and whatever their needs are, we're there to meet those needs, and whatever time they're available.
Another thing too with first-time home buyers, so now you kind of know a little bit about the process. 2 years work history, 620 or better, like Nina said. So you get your pre-qualification, and now you're shopping for a home, and you put a home under contract. One of the big mistakes people can make that you'll see every once in a while, I'm emphatic about letting them know not to do this, but people be so excited they'll go get a Lowe's credit card so they can start buying things for the home or something like that.
Okay.
So then now Nina calls and says,
Yeah, you want to be careful not to allow anyone else to pull your credit during the process, because we will do what's known as a soft pull on the credit about 7 to 5 days prior to close to see if there are any new debts that we have to take into consideration. Did they co-sign co-sign for a child's car. Well, guess what? That's new debt, and your ratios may not be
Big
able to
mistake,
handle
right?
that. Yes, so you always want to wait. You don't want to go buy new furniture for a house that you don't own yet. So it's important to wait until after the closing if you wanted to try and do anything like that.
And do you advise for a co-signer on the home if the couple that wants to buy the home is just short?
If we can't make it work with then yes, we can possibly get a co-signer, non-occupant co-signer, and then we can also look for gift of funds. For instance, FHA will allow for a gift of funds from a family member.
Oh.
So let's say they don't have a whole lot of money, or their payment is just a little bit too high. Maybe they can get some money from a family member that can help them put more money down, can help them with their closing costs or prepaids. Also, the seller can contribute up to 6% of the buyer's closing costs on an FHA product.
Are there any other programs available that can assist first-time home buyers?
Yep, we have Fannie and Freddie has, which is conventional, has a first-time homebuyer product with as little as 3% down. A first-time homebuyer is defined as someone who hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years. So even if they've have owned homes in the past, it's their most recent time frame.
And if you want to make it work, a lot of people think, okay, well, I've got a 620 credit score and I've got 2 years work history and I like everything I hear. I think I could do it, but I really don't have any money, or I don't have much money. There's always a way to make something work. I can give you an example. My sister, she's a single mother. She's 27, 28 years old. She works at the hospital. Doesn't make a lot of money because she's in school for nursing. Nina pre-approved her along with my grandmother, who only has Social Security income but has good credit, and so she used the both of them, and they were pre-qualified with FHA, and then I gifted them the down payment, and then I negotiated the seller to pay the closing costs. So they got a house under contract, they have really virtually no money. I gifted them the funds for the down payment, I got the seller to pay the closing costs, and now they're able to be a homeowner. So there's always a way, especially with the USDA product.
You're a good brother.
That's
Excellent.
Isn't he, though? Yeah.
Congratulations. And is your gifted amount tax deductible?
He wants to know too.
that's a good one. I
Good tax
I'm not going to
question.
go out
Well,
on
she's
that
paying me
limb,
back,
yeah,
so.
so I think you probably need to ask the tax accountant about that.
But there's also a USDA product. So let's say somebody's listening to the show and they don't really have any money, but they do have good credit. They've been at their job for a long time. USDA is a zero down product, so you don't need a down payment, and then we can negotiate the seller to pay the closing costs. So really, for less than $1,000, I mean, I've got a disabled veteran in a home for $250.
Oh my.
So it's possible.
Yeah.
If you have the credit 620 or better and 2 years work history, or if you're retired, you have some proof of income, it's possible to get into a home. So it's not, everybody's, oh, I can't buy a home. It's way too difficult. It's way too hard. It's really not. I mean, it's easier than buying a car, really. So.
Wow. All right.
It's
Make it serious.
What some people don't realize is what they're paying for rent. They could probably buy a house for less.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
that was the situation with my sister. She was paying $950 a month to rent just a small home in the northeast side of Ocala. So now she's in a larger home that'll be her own home, and I think her mortgage is going to be around $850 or something.
It's either equivalent to what she's paying in rent or maybe even a little less. And rents are continuing to tick up.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
supply and demand.
But
So
is there a way to know what the mortgage would be, what the payment would be? Is there a calculator online or something that you recommend?
I would say just give me a call. Let's discuss your scenario, what
Oh.
price point you want to be at, how much you have to put down, and then we can work payments up for you and try to determine all the housing expense, principal, interest, taxes, and insurances, so they know exactly what they would be paying monthly for their mortgage.
And that's why it's important to go with a mortgage broker or a lender that's been in the game a long time and knows what they're doing, like Nina, because when she tells you what it's going to be or how much money you need, that's normally what it is. There's no variance there. Even if there is some, she's conservative, so when you go to the closing table, you're actually going to need less money than what you've been told, and that always makes people feel good. So that's an important factor when you're looking for a lender.
That's excellent.
All right. It's very interesting. I love what you're saying. I'm sure that a lot of people agree with that. Do you want to give out some contact information, phone numbers, etc.?
My office number is 352-264-7170. My cell is 352-812-2330.
And my number is 352-207-4440. If you want to talk about purchasing for the first time, if you want a broker's price opinion to see what your house may be worth if you're thinking about selling, or investment properties or potential, I'd be happy to talk with you about that too. So you can call me at any time as well.
And I can be reached at 352-727-6607.
And I would encourage you, if you know somebody who is interested in a home, check out that beautiful home that we just showcased on this show, on the streaming video. It'll be up as a YouTube video and a Facebook video, and I guess you guys are putting it on your site as well, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're producing them, you and your wife are doing them, right, Jess?
Yes, we produce this, the video. What we do is we recut.
It's a good finished product.
Recut the video and include everybody.
All right.
And I just want to give out that address because if you're thinking about purchasing and you want a good deal on a very nice home, it's 3918 Southeast 98th Place, and that's in Cobblestone North. I recommend you take a look at it because I don't think it'll last long at that price.
What is the mortgage, do you think? What do you think the monthly payment would be?
On 220, you're probably looking at about, well, it depends on the scenario, what product, how much down, what your credit is,
Right.
your rate change.
$1,000?
So a little more than that, but yeah.
Thank you. I love this show. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks,
Well,
Larry.
thank
you.
Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
Robin. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
Time just flies by.
Wow.
Doesn't even feel like a half
Yeah,
hour
I
now.
know.
Feels like 10 minutes.